In the Brexit dispute between Great Britain and the European Union, even former supporters of Boris Johnson are now turning away. One appearance in particular should have made the strategists on Downing Street nervous. Has the UK Prime Minister gone too far this time? Not only the sharp reactions from the European Union and the American Congress to Boris Johnson's handling of the Brexit agreement have a new quality. The outrage that the head of government met with from within its own ranks also differs from previous uprisings. Unlike last fall, when Johnson already played with legal standards, this time people turn away from him who have always stood by him. Michael Howard, the former leader of the Conservatives, must have made the strategists on Downing Street nervous. Howard was stunned on Thursday when ministers openly admitted that by amending the Brexit agreement, they were violating international law. Howard said he would never have believed that he would hear such words from a minister in his own party, speaking of damage to our reputation. Howard is a staunch Brexit supporter and defended Johnson even when he was at odds with the Constitutional Court. At the time, the question was whether Parliament's compulsory leave of absence was legal, which the chief judges ultimately denied. There were, however, differences in the current affair. On the one hand, the legal dispute had a purely domestic dimension. It was about the interpretation of British constitutional law. This time, in the conflict with the European Union, there is little to argue about. The government prides itself on its disregard for the agreement. According to a statement on Thursday evening, Parliament is sovereign under British law and is also allowed to pass laws that violate international treaties. It is hardly surprising that Tories like former Prime Minister John Major and Theresa May are alarmed. The same goes for the Foreign Affairs and Defence Committee chairs Tom Tugendhat and Tobias Ellwood. You voted against Brexit and don't think much of Johnson either. But this time the unease sits deep in the flesh of the Conservatives, who traditionally see themselves as the party of law and justice. Loyal newspaper commentators have dismissed the Prime Minister. Stephen Glover reminded Johnson, the former journalist, in the Daily Mail that international treaties cannot be torn up and thrown away like newspaper columns. The MP Roger Gale declared it a question of principle that one does not agree to a violation of the law, and reported from many colleagues who saw it similarly. The former Chancellor of the Exchequer, Norman Lamont, who, like Howard, sits in the House of Lords, also went to the barricades. In contrast to the House of Commons, the chamber has remained a refuge for Brexit opponents. Howard and Lamont have been among the few in the past 14 months to give Johnson almost unlimited support. Lamont gives the controversial law shaping the British internal market no chance to be accepted by the Lords. How many Tory MPs in the House of Commons will rebel against the law is unclear. Johnson could afford about 40 renegades. That is how big his majority is, and as we know now, the DUP will also give him support for this law. Downing Street seems to consider the danger manageable. Influential Brexiteers like Ian Duncan Smith or Steve Baker are defending the government's course, and the cabinet has so far shown no cracks either, except that the most prominent legal advisor of the Prime Minister has resigned because of this. The law is to be discussed in Parliament for the first time in the coming week. Should it get a majority in the House of Lords, what the Daily Telegraph calls a mighty battle with the House of Lords should begin. The government-affiliated newspaper believes that Johnson does not necessarily want to pass the law in the controversial version, but primarily wants to use it as means of pressure in the negotiations with the EU. According to this reading, Johnson could finally get involved in corrections of the incriminated passages of the Northern Ireland Protocol if the relevant regulations were clarified more in the British interest in the framework of the joint implementation talks. Others believe, however, that Johnson is deliberately breaking off negotiations on future relations because the necessary compromises with the EU would restrict the kingdom's sovereignty too much. Some hardliners in Downing Street are said to consider the situation favourable for a radical farewell to the EU because the economy is already in deep problems due to the corona crisis, and the consequences of a no deal could not easily be attributed to Brexit. In fact, the corona crisis is driving the British and also the government more and more. The tightening of protective measures, in particular the ban on gathering for more than 6 people, has divided society and received more public attention last week than the negotiating drama with Brussels. The measure, which is to be enforced with fines and new supervisors, could even become the main problem for Johnson. Resistance in the Conservative parliamentary group against the six-person rule and its unbranded enforcement is greater than that against the unannounced breach of law in a ratified agreement. Nochmal. The measure, which is to be enforced with fines and new supervisors, could even become the main problem for Johnson. Resistance in the Conservative parliamentary group against the six-person rule and its unbranded enforcement is greater than that against the announced breach of law in a ratified agreement. And today I won't comment too much on the videos because today in my hometown and in my home state there are local elections. And as you probably already know, I am a borough councillor and I'm running for re-election today. So I'm quite busy with the election today, and please forgive me if I don't comment today or have too much a look. So don't publish too many links in your comments because I have to allow them to pass through and I won't have much time for that today. If you now want to know more about European politics, YouTube has chosen another of my videos right here for you in the end screen, right next to your chance to subscribe to my channel. I'll see you in my next video. Click and enjoy. Viel Spaß!